Hello and welcome. My name is Emily D. Simone and I am your host. Thank you so much for joining us for the 24th Annual Garden State Film Festival. This year we have over 200 films and film-centered events from various countries, all happening across 9 venues from March 26th to the 29th this year. Today I'm here with director, writer, and producer Lauren Schwartzbard of the homegrown animation Colors of the Soul. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today, and congratulations on your piece being accepted into the Garden State Film Festival.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm so excited to be in the Garden State Film Festival. I'm from New Jersey, made the film while I was in New Jersey,
Awesome.
so it's really exciting to be able to screen it in my home state and have so many of my like friends and family who hopefully will be able to be there as well.
Let's tell our live audience a little bit about Colors of the Soul.
Yeah, so Colors of the Soul was actually sort of initially inspired from a painting that I made
Ah,
in a paint and sip where we were supposed to do a couple standing under an umbrella in the rain, but I did a woman and a cat instead. I'm not sure why. I don't remember why I'd made that decision. But many years later, then in a screenwriting class, we were supposed to make a short film with no dialogue. And I was looking around my room, thinking about my life, and I saw that painting. And I just suddenly was like, what if I was that woman? It's like
mhm,
isolated from all the color.
mhm.
And I started thinking about that a bit more. What does that actually mean to be like stepping away from color? Is that life? What does that mean? And I started thinking about my own life and my own struggles with my mental health journey, and the script just all came together from there.
That's really beautiful to hear. As you know, I am a 29-year-old, and I feel like everyone in society these days, we take mental health so much more seriously than did 20, 30 years ago. And so I think that a lot of people will be able to relate with your piece. Is that what you look to have your audience take away from this short?
Yeah, I definitely am grateful that, like, for me growing up, there has
Mhm,
been a lot more acceptance
mhm,
of mental health struggles. I think what I am really hoping for is seeing representation and understanding
mhm.
that it can be really difficult. I do think there's still a lot of media that makes it seem like it's very exciting all the time
Yeah.
to be sort of mentally ill, or I have bipolar too, so it's sort of inspired from that. There's a lot of media representation of being bipolar 1 and
Mhm.
the really kind of exciting manic moments,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of hoping that this piece also highlights the serious depressive side of bipolar disorder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing something that is so what you would think to be so private and personal, but in reality, so many people do suffer from. Like you're saying bipolar 2. I have a friend who's bipolar 1, but I know someone else that was bipolar 2, and I have family members that are bipolar 1 and 2. So I really appreciate that from my own personal standpoint, you coming out with this piece to share. What was it like for you filming? Well, filming this piece, creating this piece.
Yeah, it's the first piece that I've done that was animated. I have always been, like, into art, and I like to paint, but I knew going into it that I was not going to be able to do the animation to a degree that I would have been happy with.
Mhm.
So I worked really hard to first find a good storyboard artist because I'd only ever done live action shoots before where the storyboard could basically be stick figures, really, if need be.
I'm right
But
there with you.
but I couldn't do stick figures with a storyboard artist and then give that to my animator and be
Yeah.
like, "Make my movie, please." So
Mhm.
it was really a lot of back and forth. I've never spent so much time storyboarding as I did for this piece, even though it's much shorter than my live action projects that I've worked on.
Mhm.
And it was really exciting to have something that was just in here and talking to someone, see it come to life. And of course, as the amazing collaborative nature of film, my storyboarders had an idea and I thought that was a great idea. And then we developed that. And then when I was finally able to work with my animator and her team, then they brought their own ideas to the piece and their own kind of history with mental health and art. And it was just so beautiful and exciting to watch it really come to life and to see the different iterations where it started just very simple, black and white, kind of
Mhm.
sketch quality, and then every version to see it become what it is now was really validating and exciting.
Well, I mean, art therapy is I have a friend of mine who's an art therapist. So I think that it's a beautiful way to be able to express sometimes what words cannot. So
No, 100%, 100%.
where is it that you found the rest of your team that put together this production?
I was really lucky that I put out a kind of like a call for a storyboard artist on my social media. I had gone to film school, so a decent amount of people that, like, I was, like, friends with and, like, online, so socially, I was like, "Maybe somebody knows someone," and one of my friends told me about a person who they ended up being unavailable, but they knew, someone named Emma Grace Reynolds, and she happened to be available, and I ended up working with her, and I, like, could not have been happier with how that ended up, and it was all just because, like, a friend of a friend knew somebody,
Yeah.
which is just amazing how we're connected like this today. And then I put out an animation call on, I think it was Bark, because I didn't really know how to find an animator. I tried to do the sort of the same thing, but I didn't really know any animators the same way that I knew like production designers or storyboard artists.
Right.
And then I was doing basically sort of conversation interviews with these different teams.
Mhm.
And then I ended up with Lightning Animation, which is run by Allison Atreides, and she had her own sort of history with family and bipolar disorder. So we really connected right away during our conversation. And she seemed so excited about the project. And I really felt, and I do still feel like she and her team were excited to work on the project sort of in their own right, not just because it was a job that they were getting paid to do, but they really connected with the piece and wanted to make it incredible, like for themselves as well. So I feel like I just lucked out so much with getting a team like that. And sort of fun, as a fun fact, like most of the team were all women. There were a couple of
Yeah.
men involved, but I love anytime it's a like female filmmaker story
Yeah.
as well.
Of course. I think women empowering women, we can create beautiful things. So
Absolutely.
you had said that this was a little bit or a lot of bit time consuming for you as like one thing, but what would you say was, your favorite or the most rewarding part of putting together this piece and also the most challenging part?
Oh, I think probably the most rewarding for me
Mhm.
was when I maybe went back to the script because I'd written it in college.
Mhm.
And I looked at it then a few years later, and I did some, tweaking development to it as I have grown as a person and wanted to revisit the piece. And it's when I was revisiting it, I suddenly realized like I could actually make this.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just something I'd made in a screenwriting exercise that was going to be shelved for the rest of time. I was looking at it again, I'm like, "This is important to me," and that, like, recognition to myself that this story is important to me and it does matter and it's something I want to try to make.
Mhm.
I don't know, just, like, the puzzle pieces all clicked, and I felt really inspired to go out there. I think what was challenging, although it ended up being really rewarding with the storyboard artist, was when I was trying to communicate what I was seeing in my head.
Mhm.
The cousin of my cousin had helped me make, like, a mood board concept
Okay.
piece, which did help a bit, but I felt like I was speaking a language that was not initially being understood by, like, anybody else because it was just in my head, and I
Right.
had to kind of keep referencing existing art pieces and say, like, "So it's sort of like this, but not." And that was a little challenging until we
Yeah.
got over that hurdle, and then once we were speaking the same language of the piece, then it was, like, so easy, but just that initial explaining that I wanted it to look sort of hand-drawn, not 3D,
Mhm.
but still fluid and have, like, sort of a bit of, like, VFX graphic for the color, things that made sense in my head when I saw it, but really had to, like, come up with how to convey that properly to the team.
So, what would you say is an animation that you've seen that inspired your style for this? Like, is there a specific, like, film, TV, or a director or artist that inspired you?
I don't know if it's one particular
Mm,
animation. I grew up watching a lot of animated movies,
yeah.
everything from like the Barbie movies,
Yep,
Disney movies,
yep.
Anastasia, which is now technically owned by Disney but wasn't
My
originally.
favorite, yes.
And I always really liked the kind of weird animation styles that would kind of come out of nowhere. I do think an animation style that really struck with me and maybe is part of like that kind of 2D drawn like flatness that I kind of really was moved towards is I think it was from I'm not sure for which Harry Potter movie it was. Maybe the Deathly Hallows Part 1 where they see like the story of the Deathly Hallows and there's that weird sort of like animation tail.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't really know what you would call that, but that idea where like the characters are in the world but they're also out of their own world.
Mhm.
And that I feel like really represented somebody who's unmedicated at the time, who's living, but they're
Yeah.
sort of not quite there.
Uh-huh.
They're somewhere else. And I really liked that, but I wanted it to be colorful because I love colors. And I have felt when I have been in a depressive episode, personally, I can't reach the colors. They're all like muted and faded.
Mhm.
And when I was explaining this to some people, they said, oh, it's like The Giver.
Yeah.
And sort of, but the reason I think it's unlike The Giver is it's not like society is explicitly like hiding the color
Mhm.
from anybody. Like the color is visible in the world of colors of soul from the whole time once it's there, but she can't reach it. She can't access it herself. So I think that's sort of like the difference. But explaining it to people, they're like, oh, dystopian, black and white, and then color.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the easiest example to reference
Well,
until now.
I will say one of the first things I noticed when you, popped up on my screen was the beautiful blazer that you are wearing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, will I be meeting you in person at the festival this year?
You will. I will absolutely be there.
Awesome. Well, for our live viewers, Colors of the Soul will be screening in the Berkeley Continental on Sunday, March 29th during the 12:15 p.m. to 1:45 p.m. block. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. I look so forward to meeting you in person, and congratulations again for being accepted into the film festival.
Well, thank you so much, Emily, for interviewing me and having me in the festival.